Good morning. Welcome to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting of February 22nd, 2022. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the agenda review, Bob.
Well, Mr. Chair, we do have one change to the agenda today. I would like to remove the action item from the Human Resources agenda. Some additional issues have surfaced there, so we'll delay any action on that item.
I move approval of the amended agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Clean, seconded by Vance. Any discussion? All those in favor, I think we can just say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right. And we have a public comment period. Do we have anybody wishing on a public comment?
I think it was Jeff and...
Are Mr. and Mrs. Henry here this morning?
Yeah, I
don't see him.
don't see him.
Yeah, online?
Are they on? I don't see him.
Who's the coyote?
Yeah, are they the coyote? No.
That's a staff person.
I was going to have him come up, the coyote. Okay. Well,
it doesn't look
I
like
guess we
they're
don't have anybody here for public comment. All right. I guess we can move into the final hearing on the proposed improvement to County Ditch 35. And the purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for County Ditch 35 and findings and orders as presented by staff. Craig Ossenson, with our staff, would start it off. Thanks, Craig.
The purpose, Blue Earth County Ditch 35 is located in the north central portion of Mapleton Township and southeast of the city of Mapleton. The primary purpose of the proposed improvement is to address problematic sloughing and sediment issues by rebuilding portions of the open ditch. The project includes a new lateral in the northeast portion of the watershed. The appointed engineer has prepared plans that include alternative best management practices or water quality practices. The engineer and drainage staff have worked with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Department regarding this project. The Commissioner DNR has provided plans for the preliminary survey report as well as a detailed survey report. Advisory reports from the Commissioner have been received and are part of the record of proceedings. The purpose of today's hearings is to seek the approval of the Drainage Authority for the proposed County Ditch 35 improvement and lateral petition by approving the proposed findings in order. Landowner information meeting was held on February 9th, 2022. Hearing notices were mailed on January 28th, 2022. Notice was posted for the hearing outside the Blue Earth County Historic Courthouse located at 204 South 5th Street, Mankato, Minnesota. Notice of the public hearing is also published in Mankato Free Press for 3 consecutive weeks. The redetermination, this meeting will also include a redeterminations of findings of order. That'll be the first action the board will take. The second action will be improvement of the lateral findings in order. And if that is approved, there will be a resolution to financing, which would be the third action the board would need to take. We'll go on now to the reading of the DNR report. This is a letter from the DNR dated February 9th regarding the final engineer's report for proposed improvement of Blue Earth County Ditch 35. Dear Blue Earth County Drainage Authority, thank you for the opportunity to review the proposed improvement of County Ditch 35. We offer comments in accordance with the Minnesota Statute 103E.301 on behalf of the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. This project summary. This project proposes to improve drainage capacity and address ditch bank erosion in the 3,160 acre CD35 watershed. According to the final engineer's report, the drainage system includes both ditch and tile. Both the ditch and tile outlet to County Ditch 95 at the downstream end of the project. 4 alternatives were proposed for the main, including 3 sizes, 60-inch, 48, and 72-inch. Within the existing plan view, the alternative 4, which is a 60-inch tile offset 35 feet from the ditch with a large capacity overflow channel, then options with a larger capacity overflow channel than options 1 and 3. The project engineer recommends option 4. Context: this project outlets into the Maple River and is within the Le Sueur River watershed. These rivers are impaired and stressed by altered hydrology and experience frequent flooding. Please refer to the DNR preliminary engineer's advisory letter for more detailed context. Summary for persisting issues. A number of issues were identified within the preliminary engineer's report. Subsequent correspondence and the project model revisions have occurred since the preliminary engineer's report. However, several of these issues have not been resolved. A summary of these issues is below. Please refer to the preliminary engineer's advisory report for more details. The project possesses potential impacts to wetlands, shallow groundwater, water quality, fish and wildlife, and sensitive ecological resources. Wetland Conservation Act Technical Evaluation Panel should be engaged to ensure that there is no impacts to regulated wetlands in this watershed. The addition of a 60-inch trunk pipe installed 3 feet below the ditch flow line will likely result in additional wetland loss for the watersheds. These wetlands may be protected by the Wetland Conservation Act. Water storage by controlled drainage or wetland restoration should be pursued. Increases in peak and total flow volumes will contribute to the flow increases and flooding of this watershed. Environmental considerations should begin years before the petitioner's meeting, striving to incorporate the cost as part of the improvement project to address mitigation for altered hydrology. The final engineer's report should detail how the adequacy of outlet determination was made, including that of the project does not create 1, loss of function to down drainage outlets, 2, excessive scour deposition of sediment, and 3, additional flood damages. Nutrient management strategies are needed to reduce load into the received waters. Additional best management practices such as wetland restoration and reduced ditch cleanouts should be added to the final engineer's report and implemented into this project. Persisting modeling issues. To assess the impact of the public drainage waters, the potential need for public waters work permit, we requested a modeling report and the model itself to evaluate. Modeling information has been provided in several iterations, but conditions to display issues as summarized below. These concerns are addressed during the February 7th Teams call with the project engineer and county staff. Several of these concerns require additional clarification, including address the hole in the proposed condition by the solar farm, provide information on the collaboration of how this is compared to designing considerations, fix the time of concentration, TC error, and provide all calculations for TC in GIS. Consider using a different hydrograph shape, 350 or 400 instead of 484. Show the subcatchments from County Ditch 95 outlet that contribute to the watershed area of 3,748 acres. Redraw the detailed outlet detail in the plan set to clarify, clearly show 36-inch pipe at the legal condition. Rerun XP swim to include pipe flow losses. Conclusion. The Maple River and Le Sueur River watershed are already overburdened by excess drainage water. Without effective mitigation, this project will contribute to higher annual discharge, erosion, sediment, habitat degradation, and water quality impacts. This project does not integrate any mitigating BMPs or long-term storage or work or to otherwise improve watershed conditions. Therefore, this project will contribute to the degraded water quality, habitat, and general environmental conditions. This project does little to mitigate the drainage improvements or otherwise improve the watershed. We encourage the Drainage Authority and the project proposers to implement projects and management practices that mitigate altered hydrology and water quality impacts within the watershed. Soil health practices and other BMPs should be used to store and evapotranspirate water from the landscape while also supporting sustainable farmland, healthy watersheds, and rural communities. Additional acres of cover crops, rotations, and residue management would increase soil organic matter and thereby increase soil, water, and nutrient holding capacity. Restoring drained and farmed wetlands would add storage and evapotranspiration and habitat within this area. All of these practices would help mitigate heavy rainfalls and help store, infiltrate, and evapotranspirate water. If you have any questions about this letter or would like to set up a meeting to discuss, please contact area hydrologist Dan Garalmo, and he gives Dan's email address. Sincerely, Todd Colander, District Manager. And that is it for the jurisdictional documents and the DNR report.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Now at this time, we'll hear from the engineer. Probably introduce yourselves.
Yep. All right. 1 second. I'm going to just share our presentation on Zoom, if that's all right. Hang on. Why can't I do this? All right. There we go. And all right, so Chuck Brando with ISG.
Joe Donkers with ISG.
So I'm the project engineer, and Joe has assisted in doing a lot of the modeling and the plans for the project. So again, as Craig said, County Ditch 35, one of the main goals is to fix erosion issues that have occurred. And I'm going to play a brief video here just to emphasize. I think most of you have seen this, but this ditch has had major stabilization issues over the years. Myself, I've been involved with trying to come up with solutions for this for about 20 years. We've done some repairs. We've tried some test sections with riprap, regrading. The best solution that we've come up with is putting a pipe in the bottom of the ditch. So we've done that in 2 areas. And that has solved a lot of our erosion issues on this system. We have a township road on one side, farm fields on the other side, and we have failures on both sides of that system. So one of the main goals of this petition for the improvement is not to increase drainage capacity in this area, but to solve an erosion issue that has been persistent for quite a long time. Over the past, from 2008 to 2018, there's been about $500,000 spent trying to fix the erosion issues on this portion of the ditch system. The video that I just showed you was from 2020, so you can see that those obviously did not work. So that's why the pipe option for the 60-inch tile was developed. We talked a little bit already through the 103E process. We're at the final engineering report, the final hearing. There are many things that need to be reviewed at that point, including cost benefit and is the project feasible, practical, cost effective, and obtain some feedback from landowners, which we have gotten some on a few issues. Here's been the kind of the timeline for the improvement process. The PER was completed last year, or in spring of 2021, and we did have a landowner meeting a couple weeks ago that a few things have been brought up since that meeting. So again, the total watershed's about 3,100 acres. It's very flat. Not including the ditch, it's only got 55 feet of fall throughout that 3,000 acres. The system does drain into County Ditch 95. It was an all-tile system established in 1915. In 1957, the open ditch was constructed. That was not constructed in the lowest area. It was put along a township road, and that's where we've seen some of the erosion issues. At that time when the ditch was constructed, all the material was placed on top of the ditch. You had a road on one side, so all the material is on the east side of the open ditch when that was built. Here's the watershed map. The red line represents the watershed boundary. The black lines are the public tile. It's hard to see zoomed out this far, but there's a blue line that represents the public open ditch. Just more site photos of the erosion that's occurring along the open ditch. We did look at the capacity of the entire system. Generally, the open ditch has adequate capacity, but it is being restricted by all the material falling into the open ditch, causing a narrower channel in many locations. The tile that is proposed to be improved is undersized by about 50%, and the tile that's being proposed to be improved is very shallow. There's portions of the tile that only have 2 feet of cover, especially when you look on the northeast side of Highway 22. So all those things were taken into consideration when landowners were presented with options to improve the system. Gain some depth, replace some failing tile, and then obviously figure out a way to solve the erosion issues on the ditch. So I'm gonna let Joe go into the proposed design.
So generally speaking, we kind of have a couple different criteria to guide our improvements. For tile specifically, we try and get 5 feet of cover over the tile. We try and get a ½ inch per day for drainage coefficients, and we try and incorporate BMPs wherever possible, specifically water quality inlets along roads. And then we also look at the outlet and just make sure it's adequate for the improvement. For crossings, we try and get an inch per day drainage coefficient, and that's to both the tile drainage as well as the overland flow. And we incorporate other alternative side inlets along the ditches as well. So looking at the proposed watershed map, similar to the existing, the red line represents the watershed, the black line represents the existing tile, and then kind of separating this into two separate improvements. You have north of County Road 29, we're going to be deepening the ditch in that teal line, and then the green line represents the proposed tile. And then looking at the southern portion, which is where a lot of our time has been spent, we propose to put a tile 35 feet offset of the ditch and then fill in a portion of the ditch. So this kind of summarizes what we looked at in the past. Like the DNR mentioned, we kind of went through different options for how we're going to put the tile in the bottom of the ditch. After modeling it, we found out that we couldn't really make that work without backing up too much water upstream in the watershed. So that's kind of how we came with tile offset of the ditch, and then we can manipulate the overflow for the ditch. So the yellow line represents the proposed abandonment that we have.
Yes. So just kind of zooming in on the southern portion, this red line is the open ditch and tile, and we'll show a cross-section of that. And then the yellow line is the 100-year-old tile that served these properties. It was proposed to abandon this portion of tile. Since the landowner meeting in the past few days, we've gotten some comments that landowners would like us to consider not abandoning that. So if the board so chooses, we could look at some alternative options to not abandon that line. That would slightly affect the benefits. So we would need an updated report if you so choose. The reason we recommended abandoning it is that each one of these properties had access to the tile. They would have to modify their drainage capacity, but it is a significant cost to replace this tile. It's currently a 36, 34, and 30-inch tile, but drainage has been cut off almost on all sides of it. So it only needs to be a 24 or an 18. So there could be some significant cost savings if that tile is left in place. So that's something that maybe could be considered. Go ahead.
So here's the third page of the handout. It's just a plan and profile view of the tile next to the ditch. So the green line, looking at the bottom of the page in the profile view, the green line represents the flow line of it represents the proposed tile. And the bottom, as you can see, is about 2 feet deeper than the ditch. And then the red line just above that represents the overflow grade of the fill of the ditch.
One of the comments in the DNR letter said that the culvert situation near the outlet wasn't shown very clearly. There is a 72-inch and a 36-inch culvert in place there now. We're proposing to replace those. They're both metal culverts with concrete culverts and lower them to make the 60-inch pipe have an adequate outlet. That would also include lowering a small portion of County Ditch 95.
So that was kind of one of the bigger modeling issues is by reducing the tile from a 72-inch to a 60, we were able to manipulate the height of the overflow culvert. So by lowering that, we can make the 60-inch work as well without backing up water upstream.
One other thing to note for landowners is that the pink areas along this plan sheet is where grading would occur, and we're taking that material that was placed when the ditch was constructed and putting that in the bottom of the channel. And we'll show a cross section of that right now.
So here's the cross section, and kind of like I said, the tile will be 35 feet offset of the ditch, about kind of right at the existing top, and then the overflow grading was kind of manipulated to, one, make sure that we're getting above the existing slough line. So, you know, like obviously the kind of the big thing is making sure we're getting rid of the sloughing, but also making sure we're not backing up water upstream. So that was kind of the where we came to this conclusion. We manipulated that a bunch, trying to figure out which levels we could get to make it work.
Balance the flows to as close to as possible as existing, and fill in the areas that are sloughing. So a lot of work went into this cross section. It doesn't look like a lot, but there's a lot of work on setting that elevation. And here's just a little bit more of a detail how that material would move. This darker hatch comes down into this area, and then the tile is offset. Doing two things: reducing the amount of material on top of the ditch, which is part of our problem, is we have all this weight on top of the ditch that's pushing down, and then filling in that failure plane. So we should have a channel that should maintain itself. We did a test section of this a couple years ago, and it's worked very, very well. I do have video of that if you want to see that. So this already has been proven to work on this system.
And the proposed tile capacities are for a 1/2 inch for the tile, pretty much right at the existing grade of 0.04 and 0.05.
And the overflow culverts on the ditch would match the capacity that's currently there.
So then kind of transitioning back to the northern part above County Road 29. Like I said, we're slightly be deepening the ditch, more so cleaning, and that's just to get a little bit more depth. So when we install this tile, the main tile, it will have enough cover. As kind of you saw in the, Chuck went over the issues with the cover. This is kind of the main reason, just to get more depth so we can get 5 feet of cover over the proposed tile.
Generally, this area is all upsized to a 1/2 inch drainage coefficient and to get 5 feet of cover. We don't need to go over the sizes, but we can if there's individual questions. We did go over those with the landowners. We did look at storage options. We did send out a few storage areas to a couple landowners, and we just did not get anything back. But when we'll go over modeling here in a second, we felt that storage wasn't needed because we're matching or lowering peak flows. We're also abandoning large portions of the system where the improvement is adjacent to. So we put together what's called an XP swim model. It's a detailed hydraulic model. Statute requires that we look at the 5, 10, 25-year, and 50-year events. We add in the 2-year and the 100-year based on many years of working back and forth with the DNR so they could have that information. They specifically asked for the 2-year. I like to look at the 100-year just to see if there's any structures that could be affected.
So here's kind of a video of the existing versus the proposed conditions. So as you see, rain will kind of start hitting right about now. And then you can kind of see the darker, the lighter shades are deeper areas, and the blue dark is less than about a tenth.
Yeah, and here's a 50-year event. So there's a very detailed hydraulic model, and it takes into account a lot of information, the soil types, the road crossings, the culverts, some of the comments that the DNR has, and I can address those individually if you'd like. Just go into the way we've modeled this system. I've got a lot of experience working on this system in the last 20 years. Plus, we have modeling data from County Ditch 57, which is just off the edge of this map. Actual monitoring data on how a system like this works. We've used that data to help calibrate this model. So we feel this is the closest model to CD 57, which has a ton of data. We feel we've got very accurate model based on existing data on how a system works. So.
And kind of in going off that, as Chuck previously said, where we put in the little test section in 2017, we put together a HEC-RAS model for that. So we also have that model that we've kind of used to calibrate the proposed to. So. And
we've flown the drone and measured water levels after the test section was in. So we've done a lot of work on modeling that we feel that we've got this thing dialed in pretty close. When you look at the modeling results, again, the statute says 5 through 50-year events. For those events, our model shows that we are decreasing the peak flow at the outlet of the system. Part of that is that modification of the channel and the tile. There'll be a small amount of storage in the ditch along County Road 29. And then the downstream effects in County Ditch 95, there's 0 to 0.2 feet below what the flood elevations were prior to the project, except for the 10-year has a 10th increase, or the 100-year. Again, we're not required to look at the 100-year, but we do as part of the project. I'm going to skip over construction. We covered that with landowners, and this board has been through many construction projects. You know how our procedures work for that. Part of the reason we did go to a 60-inch tile, though, is that a 72-inch tile, they don't make a plastic tile, and it's significantly more cost-effective to use plastic in this case versus concrete. We've got a lot of construction slides. We feel it's good to go over these with landowners so they understand what they're getting and what the project would look like during construction. There are temporary damages that are being proposed as part of the project. The open ditch top will stay where it's at. It'll just be lowered, so there will not be permanent damages except for buffer strips that will be acquired as part of the redetermination. But there's temporary damages for construction. Those were factored into the project cost. We factored in separable maintenance into the project cost. And just in summary, when you take all of the portions of the system, what it costs to repair the system, what it would cost to improve the system, the improvement cost is about $2.9 million. That has gone up from when we talked with landowners 2 and 3 years ago. Tile prices, especially on larger tile, have gone up almost 30%. So I know that's a significant issue. Hopefully we can, if this project moves forward, we can get some good bids. When you take the repair versus the improvement, you've got a net cost of $836,000. Viewers will cover their report, but they've got approximately $1.2 million of benefits. As the project is proposed with the current abandonments, there's a net benefit of $400,000. If we modify some of those abandonments, there'd be a modification to this, so that would take a little bit of review to make sure that the project is still cost effective. So There are some road authority costs included in the project. We do cross a couple township roads and Highway 22. I have had multiple meetings with MnDOT. I'm not sure if there's a MnDOT representative here. We are proposing to charge road authority costs to MnDOT as part of the project. And those are broken down in the report. We did do a multi-purpose drainage management plan looking at where wetlands could be restored. We also did a level 1 wetland delineation, looking where wetlands are located throughout the watershed. The proposed system does not affect any of the potential wetlands within the watershed. We did show this map to landowners and go over alternative practices that could be completed as part of the project. With the open ditch modifications, we're proposing to do alternative side inlets, which reduce erosion. It will reduce, they go on top of the ditch, bring water in and drop it down to the bottom. There is funding through the SWCD and GBRBA for those, so we would, if the project is approved, we would seek some of that funding. All right, DNR comments. Going through the letter, I'm just going to address a few of those items. This is the DNR letter. Just going to our comments.
This is the same one that Craig wrote out earlier.
Yes. So hopefully everybody received a copy of our memo and just highlighting some of those issues. There's a comment on potential impacts to wetlands, shallow groundwater. That is all covered within the report. There's already an existing drainage system in place. So the groundwater is already being captured by a tile in this system. This system is all system tiled. There's probably very few acres that are not system tiled within this watershed, and we're not changing that. There's a comment about the Wetland Conservation Act. We did a level 1 wetland delineation. The 60-inch pipe is going in an area where there's already been disturbed land. The ditch was constructed, the material came out, and is piled there. So they will not be going through any wetlands or affecting any wetlands with the construction of the 60-inch tile. We talked about water storage and peak flow. I can cover that in more detail. The comment about environmental considerations years before the project, that is very difficult for drainage authorities to review. You get a petition and then you have to start the process. We had been working with landowners to try to solve this erosion issue for many, many years. So I feel we have met that requirement. The adequacy of the outlet, I believe we covered that with the peak flow discussion and the modeling discussion. Nutrient management strategies, we did present the MDM plan to landowners. We did talk to a few landowners about storage options, wetland options. It's very hard to do controlled drainage in this system because it's already all tiled. You have to modify your existing tile system to do that. So I believe that's why landowners were not, we did not get any feedback on that from landowners. The modeling issues, we have corrected most of those modeling issues that were brought up. Again, we had a meeting with the DNR about a month ago, went through a lot of those issues and reran the model with an update to that. The results show that we still have a reduction in peak flow at the outlet of the system, except for the 2 in the 100-year, which technically we don't have to review.
So this is, just to kind of clarify, this is what we kind of showed earlier, so an increase in the 2 and increase in the 100. After we did their updates, we're only increasing in the 2 and we're decreasing in every other event. So their kind of changes they wanted to make actually kind of made the flows better for the proposed.
So in summary, we feel that the project meets the requirements of the statute and is cost-effective, practical, and feasible, and should be approved with your consideration of the abandonment portion if we want to take a look at that again. There are solutions that could be done for that and satisfy the landowners, but again, that just got brought up a few days ago, so we don't have a design for that. So,
I think we should
which,
the 60-inch in the ditch.
oh yeah, we,
I think, obviously we've talked about this a lot, and at this point we're just repeating ourselves, but I think it's kind of important to just reiterate the fact that the main portion of this improvement was to fix the sloughing in the ditch. We did a test section in 2017. We're like, hey, this is what we can do. We showed that it worked. We want to do that for the whole stretch, but because you need 40 inches of cover over the tile, that was going to back up the ditch too much. So we came up with a solution to move it to the side of the ditch where we can kind of manipulate our water levels a little bit better. So as you can see, yeah, this is kind of the only stretch of the ditch that looks, that doesn't have major sloughing issues. And this is basically what we want to do for the whole stretch of the ditch.
so the tile will be over here, and the ditch will look like this, a shallower section. And you can see, this is 3 years after the test section has been in, and we don't have any sloughing. The grass has grown, it's working. So, thanks for mentioning that, Joe.
Yeah.
That's all we've got. It's a big project, there's a lot of detail. This is a high-level review of that. So, thank you. Any questions of us?
Any questions? No? All right. Well, thank you, Chuck and Joe, for your information. I guess at this point, we'll hear from the viewers. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Morning, Dan.
Good morning, Dan. Yep.
You might have to move that microphone around just a little bit, towards you so people can hear you better.
Hello?
Can you hear me right?
Can you hear me? All right. We had our informational meeting on February 9th. There was a dozen farmers that appeared at the meeting. This is our final hearing. The appointed viewers for this project were Dan Ruby, Bill Anderson, Lance Roberts, and Ron Rehnquist. The reasons for the informational is to explain the viewing process, to ease reading of the report, sharing of questions and concerns, to make changes, and for viewers to prepare the reports for the final hearing. This report covers the redetermination and improvement for a previously constructed drainage system. It is a comparison of the conditions prior to artificial drainage with those that should exist with the drainage system in a reasonable state of repair. The viewing process is a mass appraisal process that values a universe of properties as of a given date using a standard methodology, employing common data, and allowing for statistical testing. The aids we use in viewing are the USDA Soil Survey, GIS photos and data, Minnesota LIDAR, the DEM model or the digital elevation model. We use yield averages and production costs from the college system, sales data from Blue Earth County Assessor's Office, and we visually inspect each 40-acre tract. Here's a summary of CD 35. It was established in 1914. There was an improvement in 1957. Lateral 1 was done in 63. The redetermined last in 1998. The DNR petitioned for and received permission to alter CD 35 crossing of Highway 22. Benefited acres is 3,070 acres. It has 49,110 feet of tile. It has ditch, and so there will be buffer purchased. The number of acres of buffer are 7.55. There will be $49,075 in damages. Provides outlets to Blue Earth County, Mapleton Township in those sections listed. It outlets into the Maple River via CD 95. Here's a watershed image of CD 35. Here is what it looked like in 1938. Here's an image of the soils layer. So when we go out and look at your 40, we break it. The computer breaks it down into the different soils. So we're evaluating acreage based on the soils. We also evaluate it based on contours. Here's the DEM model. The dark, the purple and the blue represent the low land. The oranges and the brown represents the highland. Benefits and damage. This is just a summary. If a landowner benefits, he shares in that cost. If a landowner is damaged, he receives compensation. Benefit classifications based on conditions before drainage. A, open water and cattails. B, seasonally flooded hay and pasture. C, it's lands that need drainage. D, typically do not need drainage. The non-benefited category is for trees, conservation, wetland areas, and native non-converted. Our fifth category is for other, and we normally just mark our roads in that and measure our roads there. Additional benefit classes. The A- is for drain, non-productive, pasture, rim, or wetlands. And the D is for commercial facilities, the livestock, or storage. Valuation prior to drainage. The A is for standing water and cattails, market value 0, economic productivity of 0. The B land, seasonally flooded, pasture ground, market value of $1,000 to $2,000 with economic productivity of $100. The C land, wet subsoil, marginal cropland, market value of $4,500 to $6,000 with economic productivity of $637.50. The D lands, the uplands, market value of $6,000 to $7,000 with economic productivity of $712.50. Here's the potential value with NRCS guideline drainage. The A drain slough area, medium class ponded agricultural ground, it now has a market value of $6,000 to $7,000 with economic productivity of $690. So you can notice that the last slide, before it was drained, the A's had 0 market value, and now they have, with proper drainage, they have a market value of $6,000 to $7,000. The B, well-drained ground, high class, has a market value of $7,000 to $8,000 and economic productivity of $720. The C lands, well-drained ground, best class, market value of $8,000 to $9,000 with economic productivity of $750. The D land, well-drained ground, highland class with improved farmability, has market value of $8,000 to $9,000 with economic productivity of $750. Here's the income approach to value. We took a 2-year rotation of corn and soybeans. We figured that the corn was at 210 bushels. The long-term sales value was $4. The soybeans average yield we figured at 60 bushel. Long-term sales value was at $11. Adjusted income for that 2-year rotation was $750. The direct production expense for corn and soybean, a 2-year rotation, we figured that the adjusted expense was $341.96. This slide talks about the benefit value calculation, and the benefit values of A we figure at $5,140, the B at $39.90, the C is $1,880, and the D is 620. Efficiency. The net benefit is reduced when the actual conditions do not meet NRCS hydrologic efficiency standards. Tile, okay, this one, our efficiency, we rated it at 100% because the ditch did function. The proximity is in the center of your report, designated in red on this slide. Proximity is used to adjust benefits to allow owners not directly on the system a reduction for the cost of tile or connection to the system. This is done by distance and joint cost for connection. In this example, the blue line represents the ditch. This is JD 15, but this is one of the best examples I've seen. So the ditch here, we would rate this quarter at 100%. As you go away from the ditch, each quarter you go away, so this one was at 100, this would be at like 85, 70, 55, 40. So what that does is allows the farmer some money left on the table to get his water to the system and receive an equal benefit as the person that's right on the system, on the ditch. Here's a slide that talks about roads. In the center up here, you can see where we have the red. That's how we measure our roads. And the state, federal, local, they all pay something per foot for the road benefit. Here's the statement from the ROB as it was submitted. Things have changed a little bit, so we'll get there. Here's the improvement report. There were 7 A's, 378.5 B's, 2,538 C's, 146 D's. There was 3,070 acres of benefited land. There was 49,110 acres of tile, or feet of tile. There are 2 recommended changes since the informational. Here's the one that dealt with the Malone and Ward. There was an 80-acre split. The improvement rate was in error. When I did the split, I copied the lines from the ROB to the improvement, and I didn't go back and change the improvement rate. So since the informational, I corrected it. They went from 62 and 73% down to consistent 15%. Here's a slide that represents the lines on the reports. This is the report before. You can see it's a higher value, and down here is they're changed. Another recommended change was from Michael Yeager. There was 40 acres assessed to CD 57. So we actually got the benefit listing from CD 57, and it represented that those acres were indeed benefited to 57. So what that means is we had originally had like 12 acres here that was going into CD 35. Now you can see a light blue line where it was redrawn, and so when the if the project completes, we'll have the GIS people redo the basin layer, and they will be drawn out with your permission. And in addition, 584th Avenue, because of that change, there was a small road measurement that was adjusted to represent this change. Are there any questions?
There's no questions at this time? Questions? All right. Thank you then, Dan, for your...
Just one question. You had that one change you talked about this morning?
I did talk to him.
Okay.
We considered the fact that you're talking about continuing.
Okay.
That I would have, get ready to
Okay. I just
present
wanted to
it.
make sure it got published.
Yes, we will remove those 2 lines.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
All right. And then I want to thank you, Dan, then for that report. At this time, we will open hearing for public comment. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And those for participating via Zoom, you can unmute your line by clicking the microphone button on the bottom of your computer screen or pressing *6 on your phone. We also ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Okay. All right.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dean Zimmerly. I'm an attorney with Giselson Hunter. I represent Jaeger Properties and Nikki Yeager as trustee of the Joan A. Irrevocable Trust. These are both landowners on the system. These are landowners on the part of the system where the mainline tile is proposed to be abandoned under the current iteration of the engineer's report. I know the engineer had mentioned, and I would certainly encourage the board to continue this to allow us to work with the engineer on addressing this abandonment issue. I did submit a letter through Attorney Kurt Dieter last Friday, and I've submitted copies to the board today. I don't want to go over in extensive detail, but I do have some concerns about the abandonment. I think there's certainly procedural concerns about whether there's a petition under the abandonment statute has, as far as I can tell, not been filed, and no particular notice of the abandonment has been published. So I think there's procedural issues. Substantively, I think there is a problem with the findings that the board would need to make in order to abandon, which would be that this system no longer provides any public benefit to those remaining properties, or excuse me, that this mainline tile doesn't provide any benefit. And I think the real problem with that is it certainly does continue to provide actual drainage. But beyond the actual drainage, the fact that we have about 320 acres that are separate property owners consecutively drained by this without an easement in place or any agreements to maintain that tile going forward, I think that becomes a serious concern. I don't know if any of you have ever been involved in a drainage fight where you have an old, a handshake tile line draining multiple properties, and somebody stops, abiding by that. The land changes hands down the road. All of a sudden, the downstream landowner, he has a problem. There's a blockage in the tile that blocks everyone upstream, and there's no way to force him to fix that. There's no easement to allow you to go on to fix it. There's no way to split the costs of fixing that. That's what the drainage code and the public drainage systems provide landowners. So those are kind of some of the benefits that would really be lost if you have this abandonment. Now, I'm certainly happy to work with Mr. Brandel to see if there is and I think there's some proposals that at least conceptually make sense. I'm happy to work with him to find a solution that works for my clients here. And I just add one other thing. I think the idea of abandoning this it partially comes from the use of separable maintenance. As the board knows, separable maintenance is kind of this idea of, if we're avoiding some repair costs by this improvement, we get to take that difference, the repair costs, and deduct it from the improvement. If we're proposing to abandon it and not proposing any work on the system and no changes to that part of the system, I have some serious problems with whether the drainage code would allow you to use separable maintenance in that situation. So for these reasons, I would encourage the board to continue this so we can address this abandonment issue and not order the abandonment of that mainline tile and those parts of branch 1 and branch 2 of that mainline tile through the Jaeger property and the Jaeger Trust. I'm sorry if I've gone over my time, and I apologize for bringing this up somewhat late in the game, Part of this was due to, I think, the preliminary hearing all being by Zoom around this time last year, which really, I think, limited some of the landowner interaction on this. So again, my apologies. I thank the board for its time.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Is there any further comments at this point? Maybe in light of that? Again, if there isn't anybody wishing to make comments on County Ditch 35, now is the time.
Mr. Chair, looks like
Otherwise-
we have someone raising their hand.
Yeah, on
Zoom.
there, that's what I was looking for. There we go.
Can't read his name.
Unmute.
Thank you.
There you go.
Members of the board, Mr. Chair, could I share my screen?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then
This
it's,
will come up.
what's that? I can't hear. Oh, yeah, no, we're going to do that, yeah. We need to know your name.
Yes, my name is Dnr Report, and I'm representing Friends of the Minnesota Valley, which is an organization with members and supporters throughout the Minnesota Valley region, but including Blue Earth County and this watershed. For some reason, there's a firewall here. I think that is quick to make changes. Maybe that'll work. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't know there was going to be a blockage like this. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, I'm not seeing that this is happening. For some reason, I'm blocked out. What I wanted to address with you today is, first of all, we want to thank everybody who's been working on this. We are supportive of the project in terms of trying to accomplish the reduction in erosion in the open ditch, and nobody's opposed to that from our perspective. We are concerned, however, that the project as modeled is not exactly how the project will unfold. The modeling for the final engineering report, in our opinion, and Len Kramer is going to follow me with some testimony, is actually understating the actual flow, and we believe that an updated model run should be provided. Len will go into the reasons why that we believe that there's an understatement of the actual flow. We are concerned that the Minnesota River is already full and that damages are already occurring in Mankato itself because of the cumulative increased drainage that is happening throughout multiple watersheds. And as I said, we're concerned that the actual project as proposed will increase the actual flow, as Len Kramer will get into. The failed ditch slopes that are going to be repaired, we also believe that they have a continuing risk of failure into the future, and that will be discussed by Mr. Kramer. We ask you to continue the hearing to a time and date certain, option C, under action 2, so that more information that is requested by the DNR and by us in terms of a modeling to be done can be provided to you before you make a decision. We continue to encourage the county and the ditch authority to look for storage to actually, as drainage is improved on particular properties, that the watersheds can actually hold more water in storage and reduce downstream damage. The riprap project for the wastewater treatment plant in Mankato has cost the taxpayers of the area about $7 million. Of course, you're familiar with this, and this is caused by high flows in the Minnesota River. We believe this project will just add to this. Additionally, there were $2 to $3 million in modification costs to the water treatment plant, again, caused by high flows in the Minnesota River. this project being just one of many that contribute to those sorts of things. The Blue Earth River has increased water yield by over 50% since 1940. And this is something where the percentage of water that falls on the land is drained off of it. And this project will continue that to increase the amount of flow that we're seeing in our streams that is resulting in downstream erosion and impacts. There's a 3 times increase in average flow during the same time. And so that's the quantity over the course of the year. And again, that comes from increased drainage and interception of groundwater flows. Unfortunately, my PowerPoint, which I'm not able to share with you right now, we have a few pictures of sedimentation in streams and in the Minnesota River itself. In some places, deltas from some of these ditch outlets extending 2/3 of the way across the river.
Mr. Chair, there's 1 minute remaining on this public
Okay,
comment.
1 minute.
Sure, thank you. I'll wrap it up with just mentioning that the high banks of the Le Sueur River are particularly vulnerable to such erosion, and you're probably familiar with that from upstream examples in your county and neighboring counties. In summary, in terms of my comments, we're just asking you to take a little bit more time to get some more information. I hear that there's some petitioners that are also concerned about that. And we're asking you to take a look at the statement provided by David Mingy that should be in your packet or provided to you at the hearing, as well as what Ben Finger's about to provide with regard to the Isaac Walton. Thank you for your consideration today.
Yep, thank you for your comments. I guess just one more, if there anyone else that wishes to make comments regarding County Ditch 35? Would you state your name for the record?
Semi-retired water resources engineer that I volunteer with Isaac Walton. I want to talk about 2 items. One is the runoff volume, total runoff volume from the project. And the second is the some recommended modifications to the proposed ditch repair upstream of the 60-inch pipe to reduce sediment transport to downstream waters. I had a slide with Don, and unfortunately you can't show it. It shows the hydrograph from of runoff from appended the Dnr Report and a table of full runoff volume from the engineer's report. And those hydrographs are for the 2-year to the 100-year rainfall event, and they only include surface runoff. They do not include the infiltration that's being picked up by the drain tile system. And so, for the 100-year, as an example, the 100-year rainfall would be about 7.7 inches, and it would mean that there would be 2,400 acre-feet of water over the watershed of County Ditch 35. And the table indicates that only 729 acre-feet would run off. And so what is not included in that is the infiltration that's being picked up by the drain tile system. And for a 100-year event, the rainfall and the interception that's being picked up will be well over 50% of the total rainfall. So the total outflow from the project, from County Ditch 35 project, is more than 1,200 acre-feet. And the DNR letters requested this information, and I don't know that it was ever provided. It may have been provided, I don't know. In addition, as Mr. Austinson indicated, the DNR has asked for several modifications to the hydrologic model, and Mr. Randall indicated that they have been made. I recommend that there be a continuance so that the DNR can review those modifications and the effect of those modifications, and also the effect of this additional runoff from the County Ditch 35 project. The second slide I had was a picture of the existing, or the path roughly cross-section 6600 from the engineer's report, and then a cross-section of the proposed improvement at 6600. And the ditch at that point is going to be excavated a little deeper, and the slopes will be a little bit steeper. There doesn't appear to be any erosion protection or protection against possible seepage into the ditch when groundwater, or when water levels in the ditch drop. So the combination of those two will cause additional erosion of the toe of the slope and additional failures unless some form of erosion protection is provided other than just revegetation. So there needs to be some additional erosion protection developed for that particular location and location similar to it, and for the portion of the County Ditch 95 that's being excavated.
Mr. Chair, 1 minute.
1 minute.
There were failures along County Ditch 95 mentioned in the engineer's report, and the additional runoff volume and the duration of that additional runoff volume will cause erosion of both locations. So, as Mr. Arnazzi indicated, we request that you continue the investigation of possible storage on the Blue Earth River to mitigate these issues. Provide the DNR with time to review the modifications that were made in the model, and then consider options to provide erosion protection at locations like 6600, County Ditch 95, and locations similar to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to comment on the County Ditch 35? Either online or...
Yes, just someone on the telephone link.
Okay.
Name and address.
Name and address? Yes, we can hear you.
My name is David E. M-I-N-G-E, and my address is 1142 Portland Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota, formerly Montevideo, Minnesota. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you quickly. I am submitting a statement on behalf of the Isaac Walton League, and that has been transmitted, but I know some people have had difficulty opening it. There's a gentleman, Robert Hobart, who's at the meeting this morning, and he has multiple copies of the statement, so that if anyone did not receive one, Mr. Hobart can supply that.
Okay.
I have a handful of quick points. The first is substantially greater water discharge in the aggregate as a result of this project. That's already been discussed by Engineer Kramer and Mr. Arnott. Second, downstream damage. The exposure of Mankato's projects has already been mentioned. I believe you have a communication from individual Dakota County commissioners Dakota County is probably the most severely impacted county in the state of Minnesota by downstream flow of the Minnesota River. The third point is that Blue Earth County has a water management plan. It is very detailed, extensive, and provides some incredibly forthright and visionary standards for water discharge projects. And I simply recommend that that you review your own water management plan and insist that the County Ditch 35 project comply with that plan. The plan was for the years 2017 to 2026. The fourth point is that the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources has made more extensive set of objections to this project than any project that the Isaac Walton League has reviewed during the last 3 years of its drainage review effort. And these objections, several of them are quite serious, and the DNR has asked for additional time to ensure that the model adjustments that are being discussed with ISG and with Mr. Brandel are not only clarified and understood, but also adequate to meet its objections. Finally, I would suggest that the Blue Earth County Commissioners consider requesting or ordering that an environmental assessment worksheet be prepared so that you have adequate review of some of these technical issues incident to the project, and that you're able to make a decision consistent with your Blue Earth County water management plan. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Well, at this time, if we're hearing no further comments, we'll have it, close it to the public comment portion and bring the items back to our board for any action.
Mr. Chair, I move to table to March 8th.
It's been moved to table.
We probably need a motion on the table first.
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I was too quick.
Mark, I will move the findings and order approving the redetermination of benefits for discussion.
Pap seconds.
It's been moved in second. Okay.
So discussion, Chuck, from what I heard you say earlier, I'm more interested in the abandonment of this tile. I'm still have some alarming concerns about the DNR stuff, but I think we've been through most of that. And I think to start out, my comment was I think the landowners that are interested, or that was mentioned earlier in the testimony, are landowners that are more worried about the tile being abandoned. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that, but that's my understanding in the discussions I've been in anyways.
Yes, that's the discussions that I've had with landowners. That's been the only topic, other than the comments that Mr. Ruby already addressed.
Correct.
There were comments at the landowner meeting. Those were addressed already.
Okay, so my question is, we got 3 items we have to approve today to get the project done. And I certainly would support all 3 of them, but I am a little, we need to deal with something with this abandonment. And I think some of that falls on us as staff, me being the county commissioner. Harlan's brought this up several times, and again, it's just like everything else, it comes to head at the very 11th hour. This is kind of the world we live in. So your recommendation, if we were to proceed with not abandoning the tile, my understanding is it'd have to go back to the viewers, because the viewers have already deemed this property without the tile, so it's getting lower benefits. So in order for this to proceed, you would have to put some engineering stuff together to see what it costs to rectify the situation. And then Dan Ruby's team would have to put together some new benefits. Is that kind of a summary of the hour and a half we've been discussing?
That would be correct. I don't have the map up, but because that line was being abandoned, there are multiple 40s that didn't, essentially their proximity would change, so their benefits change. So you need an updated report to approve that,
Okay.
so.
And after hearing from Dean, he brings up some other issues that I would like to have clarified about the way we abandoned it or how it got in the process. But if we end up not abandoning it, that'll be a mute issue, I would imagine. So with that, Mr. Chair, those are kind of I think, some questions we do need to get resolved. At the end of the day, they might be the same, but I think Dan and Chuck should take a shot at this with the interested landowners on that abandoned pipe and see if we can get something going in the next couple weeks.
And
What
if I-
time frame do you feel that you could take care of that?
A couple weeks a few days would be fine if we had a day to meet with the landowners, go over the options, get that information to the viewers. I've taken a look at it yesterday and today after getting the information, the letters on Friday. I feel the model would not need to be changed because we modeled the system with this tile there. We didn't model it that it was going away. So if it stays there either way, whether it's public or private, it doesn't change the results of the system. So.
And from my understanding, if we do move forward with trying to keep a tile there, it'll be much smaller.
Yeah, we'd potentially put in a smaller tile. So
it won't
any
have the
effects that it would have would just be reductions in peak flows. So.
I'll go back to my original
motion.
motion. I move to table till March 8th, which is our next meeting. That should give everyone plenty of time to get this resolved.
I'll second
It's
that.
been moved and second. Okay. Not having a table
It's
for a while.
non-debatable.
It's non-debatable, so it's been a while. Okay, so then,
All in favor?
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right. Thank you, everybody,
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
for your time. All the
Should we take
efforts.
a 10-minute break? Let the
10-minute
room
break.
change up?
Yeah, need a 10-minute break.
Let's let the room change up, Craig. You hang around.
Sorry, I was not thinking. I know better and not thinking.
All right, we'll start. We'll just conclude this with Craig, if you had some comments, and then...
We have one more item.
Yep.
This is a resolution to advance capital funds to the ditch funds. This is something we do every single year. The following attachment is a resolution to advance capital funds to the ditch fund. The resolution is prepared annually by the Blue Earth County Finance Department for board action. Recommended action is to approve the attached resolution for advancement of $5,161,689.21 from the capital fund to the ditch fund to cover deficit cash balances. The advance is to be paid plus 4%.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Thanks much for today. And then I guess at this point, we do have Jeff and Deborah Henry. That will give you like 3 minutes to comment.
Jeff's going to come with. I might use his 3 minutes too. Good morning. I am here today. We appeared before you a couple times, and this is in regards to Bella's House of Doodles, located in Good Thunder, Minnesota, which is our neighbors. We received in the mail a letter of determination of a denial of running their kennel, and that was December of 2020. I also received a letter on March 1st from a meeting February 16th. Again, a denial, discontinue immediately. The ordinance defines a kennel as a place where 4 or more animals, 4 or more dogs, cats, you know your statutes. As of today, they are still running their kennel full force. They now have a second location. They have more than 4 dogs, 4 cats. My opinion is they have now turned into a puppy mill. My question is why haven't they been shut down? Why have they been given the opportunity to grow? Why is it up to us to continue to fight? Sorry. Who's responsible for carrying out these judgments? And why are you not doing it? That's all I want to know.
Okay. At this point, we just have public comment, and we'll take it under consideration. Yeah.
Their operation, it's gotten worse since we started, so who do we contact to enforce this? Because you made your judgments already, and we're not getting any help from the sheriff's department. Do we have to take it to a state statute, have the highway patrol come out, or, I mean, where do we have to go from here?
Well, we'll have administration do some follow-up on it, and Bob can do some checking on some different processes, and
unfortunately, that's what we're being told by everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
Law enforcement says it's up to this person. Pat McDermott, it's in
litigation.
Yeah, for they're trying to get it turned over. But in the meantime, it's been a year and a half, and they're still running. So I don't think we shouldn't have to wait to find out if that goes through or not. And I've contacted the attorney that's actually on this case a week and a half ago, and she said she'd get back to me, and I haven't heard from her. I have emailed each and every one of you individually, never got a response. And I know, that's why when you said that, I was like, I have done everything that I can possibly do, and that's what we keep hearing. We'll check into it, we'll see what we can do, and nobody does anything. So I'm just praying, I'm asking you, please, do something.
Sure. Well,
Law enforcement should be able to go out there and say, look, right here, and take all but 4 dogs and remove them.
We will have administration talk with the planning and zoning staff, and somebody will get back to you this time.
We'll get back to you with
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, with that,
Mr. Chair, just so
Patrick?
commissioner knows, if you and the commissioners know, the Court of Appeals decision should come out sometime in March.
March. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The pandemic things have been delayed.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But somebody should contact them and tell them that.
Yeah.
They have been contacted. I've had various conversations with Ms. Henry, and she hasn't called me since December. And she called the office after she wanted to be in front of you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
All right. Guess we
Zoning.
Planning and zoning, yep.
Morning, Garrett.
Yep. Morning, Garrett.
Good morning.
We have a little bit today, not much.
Yeah. PC 06-22 is a request from Philip Borgmeyer, or on property owned by Philip Borgmeyer Revocable Trust from the applicant of Scott Borgmeyer, which was a request for review and approval of an interim use permit to operate a 9,960 square foot self-service storage facility. The property is zoned agricultural, and the project will be constructed in the northeast quarter of Section 20 Jamestown Township. Staff presented the report. An applicant was present and had no additional comment. There was no other public comment. The Planning Commission expressed no concern of comment regarding the request. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation for approval of the request to the County Board based on the findings and conditions prepared by staff. And the board action is the resolution.
All right. At this time, we have the PC 06-22. Is there open this hearing yet? So is there anybody on the line that requests to speak regarding? Can just keep your comments to 3 minutes. I don't know if anybody's online. Again, if there's anybody wishing to make a comment on PC 06-22, please come to the or online. I don't think anybody's here. Oh. And then I guess the third time, if there's anybody wishing to comment on the 06-22, PC 06-22, please come forward. Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Kip, seconded by Vance. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right.
Go, Garrett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you,
That was
Garrett.
good. Then we have our Human Services, apparently with Phil.
Good morning.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning.
And Kelly.
And Kelly's.
Good morning.
All right.
Don't do what Vance did.
What? Oh, boy.
Well, yeah.
I need to lose weight.
I was gonna say, you'll be okay with that.
I'll say it.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thanks for hearing us today. I have a few action items to bring before the board. First of those being under the section of Adult and Disability Services. And this particular item is a new item, so you know, in school where you highlight things, I highlighted the whole paragraph, so I don't even think that really helps.
Look at this.
You know, it's supposed to work.
Yes, right. I don't think I really accomplished a task there, but so ethical solutions and structured decision-making, it's really an alternative to what we've done historically with guardianships, and I know some of the board is very familiar with this, and so am I, both professionally and personally. This particular option still serves our duty to provide guardianship supports to vulnerable individuals. It does focus on empowering the person to make the decision with the support of trusted family members, friends, and support professionals being part of their team. These decisions are first and foremost about safety, and then also helping the person understand both the benefits and the risks of choices they have for how they want to go about their lives. People feel The research shows that they have much more of when they do have positive control over their lives, they're less likely to be in situations where they're vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. The initial cost for these services is really to get the team together and develop a plan through the supported decision-making process, and the session is $350 for the first planning activities. There is also a 6-month follow-up under this system where, when requested by the agency by ourselves, we pay an additional $150 per session for those activities. And then the term of this contract is mirroring the guardianship contracts, January 1st of 22 through December 31st of 23, so 2 years. Mr. Chair, I'm just wanting to pause if there's any questions about that one, just because that is a new item, and the other ones are pretty much renewals, I believe.
Okay.
So how does that affect guardians and conservators? And, you know, I'm looking at this, I read that over, I'm going, okay, obviously, I am a guardian, I am a conservator for my son.
Right.
How does that affect the folks around the county that do the same thing I do?
Right. So I think it's in lieu of, so instead of having a full court-appointed guardianship, you would have a team that does this work. And so the level of functioning for that person would be that they can really make their own decisions, but they still have some checks and balances by their team. So it's a looser, less formal form of really a guardianship type of deal.
What kind of, what's in there to make sure that they don't make huge mistakes?
Right.
Because you know, I mean, I can see where this could give the person more power, more abilities to do more things. But I'd be concerned of financial and stuff, and somebody making a mistake and and then losing everything they have because nobody's looking over it.
Right. And you and I both know that there's lots of risks to consider.
Yeah, we kind of on the same boat there, aren't we?
I think so. And how I would look at it, Commissioner, is that this would be an option that would be put out there for the team and with the plan in place, so it wouldn't probably functionally be any different than the guardianship, because you're still surrounded by family and professionals that are doing that work. If the person, you know, needs additional leverage, I don't think it precludes you from going to get the full guardianship. I think it's more, can we work this out? We use structured decision-making in a lot of our child protection ways, and so that's probably where my comfort level is that you see families rally together and, you know, Uncle Tim says, I'll take this on and I'll do that, and we try it. It sometimes doesn't work and you still have to go back to court. So that's how I mean, it's a stepping stone philosophy.
I can see that, especially where individuals start aging.
Right.
And they don't want to have that liability anymore, or the responsibility, and let the county take over for what they're doing. That sounds like a great idea.
Exactly.
I can relate. I know people, neighbors of mine that, you know, they're basically in their 80s taking care of their son, and I can understand that kind of. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yes. So as opposed to other situations that you and I might be very familiar with, where you know the level of function is that the person really cannot make decisions independently. What we're talking about is like with my son. Henry's not able to do that, so I don't think he'd be a good candidate for this because the negotiation process wouldn't be there. I think an Alzheimer's type of situation would be a really good example where you're at the front end of that, you're worried and concerned about a deterioration in a diagnosis, and so you put this in place as long as you can float the boat that way because it's just at the front end. As things get more significant, more acute, then it would shift. So I think those are really good examples, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I think me and you need to sit down in your office and talk.
I thought about that when we were doing this. It's kind of interesting because I think there's a lot of opportunity here. It is a new thing, but I really would love that conversation, Commissioner. Yeah. Public health, Mr. Chair, a couple of items, and Kelly's sitting next to me. So if you have deep dive questions, she's here. The first one is MDH and our immunization registry allows Blue Earth County to do our efforts about preventing vaccine-preventable diseases. It is a renewal contract. As you're all aware, the name of our registry is MTRAC. The 2022 amount is $41,340, which is $958 less than the 21 contract, a 3% decrease. MTRAC is also supported through levy dollars, and you'll see our counties involved: Blue Earth, Brown, Le Sueur, Nicollet, Watonwan, and Waseca. And the funding amount for 2022 is $55,114. That's the levy amount. So those two together are what we use to complete our mission of MTRAC. This is all based on how we do the county levy parts, current birth rates for each county. The term for this MTRAC contract, January 1st of 22 through December 31st of 22.
Mr. Chair, just a question. Do we take into effect the death rate also, or just the birth rate?
I believe it's just birth rate. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the SHAC meeting the other day, and the commissioner was talking about how outdated our systems are. Is this one of them also?
I don't believe so. So
Okay.
our efforts focus on the 0 to 4 population.
Okay.
And those are where the reminders and information goes out to for vaccine preventable diseases.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Good
Just a question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good question.
Okay.
And then also under public health, Minnesota Department of Health and the Public Health Emergency Preparedness dollars, referred to in our circles as FEP. This contract provides our general strategies that Minnesota will take to meet the CDC requirements for the 2022 and 2023 budget period. The categories that are covered under these guidelines and strategies are COVID-19 response activities, the preparation for a transition to the recovery phase of COVID-19, areas of improvement based on our experiences to date, and then finally a forward-looking 5-year outlook on what we would expect in that kind of near-term, but 5-year period of time. The award amount will be brought to the board through a separate contract. The term of these guidelines is July 1st, 22 through June 30th of 23. And the final action item is under supportive housing. We've been through this before. The first part of this narrative for Hearth is that Blue Earth County serves as a fiscal host for the Southern Regional Project. So that's kind of the step one. And Blue Earth County then acts as the agent that contracts with Hearth Connections, and DHS funds are provided to Hearth, and Blue Earth County retains $10,000 for the administrative fee. That's step one. The second step then is Hearth has a responsibility to do the administrative functions for long-term homeless support services, and Hearth in their role also contract with a network of providers to carry out services related to the long-term homeless mission. The 20 counties are listed in the narrative, so you see who's involved in the overall scope. You'll see the funding from the previous cycle, and then the terms for this current cycle, January 1st of 22 through December 31st of 23, had a 1.2% reduction, which equates to $30,000 total, $15,000 each year, to a total of $2,480,530. DHS has not provided a reason for that reduction, but said they would explain it once the contracts are finalized. There is one more step beyond this then, is that we also are a direct service provider, so Hearth then contracts back with us. So there's actually 3 steps to this process, where we take DHS money, give it to Hearth, Hearth administrates the overall picture, and then we're also a direct service provider. So that's the complexity of those 3 steps. And that's it for today.
Mr. Chair, okay.
I'll move approval.
I was just going to say, you need move to approve.
Second.
It's been second. Any further discussion?
Just a comment.
Comment?
It's interesting how DHS is giving us less money and paying more money on the property taxes. This is a concern I think we all have.
Yes, and the board's been supportive, and I think read into some of our mental health threats out there of some cuts that we might have to our initiative, but this feels the same to me, Commissioner. Housing, it's not a time to cut housing dollars, and so we're hoping that maybe something will be explained that makes some sense, but right now I think we need more resources, and I know we have efforts with the ARPA money to try to be creative about how we do support people that are at risk with some of their housing situations.
Yes, and I'll comment. Interesting with what they're talking about for supportive housing, you know,
Exactly.
big initiatives and administration even. Anyway, all right. We have a...
Just one more comment.
Okay.
And they're talking about how rents are going through the roof.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of
it kind of
weird.
doesn't make any
It
sense,
doesn't
yeah.
fit together. I
Yeah.
agree.
So, all right, we have in front of us, I guess all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you.
And Commissioners, I have a couple of informational items that I'll cover, and then I'll hand it over to Kelly with your permission to give us an update regarding COVID and public health activities in that regard. The slides in your packet are related to our housing efforts, and so not a bad segue from our conversation. The dashboard shows these graphics that we brought to the board on an annual basis at least. The enrollment numbers in the first slide, households 9 and participants throughout the year of 119, and the newly enrolled were 9, the total participants 118, and total households of 67. You see the breakdown both in the pie chart and numerically that multi-person households were 25 of those 67 total families, and then single-person households 42, so a larger chunk of people we're serving in this regard are single-person households. The exit numbers, the reason for people leaving, total exits in the calendar year last was 9. This includes, obviously, folks that pass away. Incarceration is usually part of this picture. Left voluntarily to unsubsidized housing, 11%. Left voluntarily to subsidized housing, 44%, so that's the majority number. And left for institutional care and assisted living, 11%. Those percentages are skewed. We have very small numbers, but I do think it's a picture that holds, even though the numbers are so small that it's hard to extrapolate. I actually think because we have years of looking at this, that those bar graphs do show that most people kind of do it as a stepping stone, as we were talking about in other areas, that they go to primarily voluntary subsidized permanent housing. So there is a stepping stone through this process that we work with both individuals and families. The second set of slides has to do with the housing supports. So that's about housing and the structural part of housing, trying to give people a safe place to live. This is about the housing supports that we provide alongside. Enrollment numbers, total enrolled in housing supports at the end of the year, last year was 13. Total closed 5, total enrolled 5. So there is stability, and just talking with Andrew, and he gave me some notes, just that things are relatively flat. I think they're flat and yet skewed by what we've been through. I think it's just been a very different kind of picture, but the numbers, for whatever reason, have been pretty stable, not all over the map, which is nice in that regard. The total enrollment of 13, we'd like that number to be between 15 and 20, so there was a bit of a reduction in we have some capacities, I think what I'm trying to say there. And then you'll see again the reason people exit. The two most common areas are voluntarily closed to go to subsidized housing, or they just decided that they didn't want to be part of the support of the housing supports any longer, and it was their own choice. The final piece that's in your packet is more the longer page narrative about our regional housing project. This is a newer project we have, and the counties involved are ourselves, Le Sueur, and Rice County. So those 3 counties working together. Andrew Peach, who I think you're all familiar with, is our regional housing manager, and we're kind of using him to cross over to do more of a, kind of footprint across different counties and looking at regional approaches to best practices. And I think he offers us a lot of insight and expertise in that way, and also to the other 2 counties. He was able to, as part of his role, obtain a grant, Community Living Infrastructure Grant for 2 years. You'll see kind of about halfway down the page, the grant amount was $294,000, almost $295,000. The purpose of that money will be to not only support some of Andrew's costs, but also another FTE for the Housing Resource Specialist, which is right at the end of the narrative, and that just started just recently this month. So we're excited about that. Partners for Housing have been the employer of record for this position, and so we appreciate the partnership there as well. Just back up to the middle of the page, under the bullets, it says January through March 2001. Kind of in the middle of those bulleted sections, you'll see that an emphasis on a focused approach to housing in each county, so trying to bring some, like I said prior, standardization of practice and understanding about the most efficient way to do some of this work. Identify champions in each of the counties, and that's a key to always get key stakeholders identified so we know where to turn and become a little more nimble as we work in a small group together. And then obviously identifying our role of human services within the housing perspective, which is broad. There's a lot of players in this space. There's a lot of activities going on with housing and the housing stock that the Commissioner talked about, which is a real issue for everyone. And so as knowledgeable as we can be, the better off we'll be. And then I just highlighted staff education, so Andrew's ability to go and talk to social services in these other counties and in our staff so that people understand kind of the language part of what we do and how you can hand off a baton between different players involved in this housing process. In all of our service mission, housing cuts across so many disciplines, really all of them. So it's just a huge piece about the education. And then just trying to increase our housing resources through the grant and build a better provider base. He's also been very active in looking at partners that we can partner with about trying to do some of that supportive housing work. And so all of those are in scope. Kind of excited about it. I think we're at the front end. There's still a lot of wiggle room, but we got some work to do here. But I think we're on a good track, and the money sure helps. So that's really what I have for you today.
Okay.
Can I
Thanks,
just make
Bill.
a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Andrew was quoted in the paper the other day.
Yeah.
And so I sent him a note, just said, nice job or something. And he wrote back, I love my job. And I love seeing that passion,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very much appreciated by all of us, those little efforts. And yeah.
He's also on our team for Pedal Past Poverty.
Yes, he sure is.
And he's very, he's competitive too. Very competitive.
That's very awesome.
That is true.
That's very awesome.
Yeah. Kelly? And Kelly?
So, good morning.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good to be back on this snowy morning.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in with some statistics, just a high-level summary of where we're at. So since I was here last meeting, an additional 55,248 people have been vaccinated. So that's in a month. That's a great number to have. 3,641,904 Minnesotans have received the full series. So that's 2 of
Not bad.
Moderna and Pfizer and 1 of Janssen. So again, that's an increase from the last time I was here. The state and county vaccination rates have either remained the same or gone up a couple of percentage points. So again, trending in the right direction for vaccinations. Of those, we've talked a couple of times about breakthrough cases, just slight increases in those numbers. So still under 1%. The percentage hospitalized is only up slightly to 0.256%. From 0.207 last time I was here. And then deaths of vaccinated individuals rose slightly from 0.039 to 0.045. So still really good numbers, really supporting that the vaccination is preventing severe disease. hospitalization and death. So that's good news. Our numbers trending down in a good direction for these statistics. So our case rate has decreased from 1,923 per 100,000 on February 3rd to 362 this last Friday. So that is significant. The positivity testing rate at the saliva testing center at the Armory was at 14.96% the week of February 6th. That's down from 35.43 the week of January 16th. So
Wow.
some great numbers. A little influenced by home tests. That certainly is part of that. But even with that, it's some good. The home tests have been out, so that's still a good decrease.
I got my home tests the other day. I signed up for them. They just came in the mail Saturday.
Yep, this week, people have been receiving them, I think, in the order that they were put in the queue to receive them, so that's been good, yeah. There continues to be about 90 people statewide, however, boarding in the ED, so they're in the emergency room department waiting for beds. So that's still a lot of people statewide. Sometimes your bed is not close to your family or close to where you live, which is challenging for people. At the county level, our public health, we continue to provide vaccine clinics, continue to vaccinate homebound folks, and continue to partner with our jail to provide vaccine in that particular setting. So that's been a great partnership. They've been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All this is good news. However, there's still, you'd think the work would have kind of decreased, right? Nope, there's still a lot of things going on. So I'm sure you saw in the news, we coordinated distribution of 4,950 masks to community partners and the general community. The library, Blue Earth County Library, graciously partnered with us as well on that, putting out thousands of N95 masks, and they were gone within 2 days. They were gone. So our challenge was keeping them full because we had different bins in a couple of different public places for people to get. We're also receiving another 990 boxes of test kits, which is actually 1,980 tests. Each box contains 2 tests. So we'll be working to distribute those to community members who have limited access due to barriers such as transportation or income. We're again working with community partners on translation of how to administer these tests. They are a different brand than our last test. So the instructions are different, the timing is different. So the translation and interpreting that our community partners did has to be redone for these tests. So a little bit of work there. We're very thankful to our facilities management staff who has helped us get those boxes where we need them. And there's a lot of boxes, 990 kits and 4,950 masks are a lot of masks. So we really appreciate their partnership as well. We've also continued work planning for potential nursing home or assisted living closures. So staffing still continues to be a challenge. A number of our facilities border on that crisis level of staffing and or are tapping into the last of the National Guard support that runs through, I believe, March 8th. And then that option is, unless it is renewed, sunsets and staffing will go back to facilities and possibly involve local public health as it did during the early parts of the response we were contacted.
Can I ask a quick question? So are we using the National Guard here? I didn't know if we had that option. I thought they were all going to...
At times, I know there's some work right now with one of the facilities to have the National Guard support. So,
I was talking to a gentleman whose wife runs assisted living and nursing home, and he said they're just so understaffed, and it's unbelievable.
It is. So that we're certainly working on a state level, a regional level with the coalition and locally on how do we just kind of monitor that, how do we do some prevention work, support work. I know Minnesota Response Volunteers is sometimes brought up as an option. Early on in the pandemic, there was maybe a couple of folks. I don't know if that'll be different this time. That's often what they ask local public health to do, to put a message out to our volunteers. But of course, you have traveling nurses coming in and making, $60, $70, $80 an hour. So there's definitely some challenges with that, with just having folks who are even available. We have what we call a Go Kit that we're developing. So myself and another staff actually were involved with the closure of a nursing home back in, I believe it was 2008. So we've kind of been around that block, at least in a much was a much better situation because it was planned and we knew ahead of time there was another facility opening that people could go to. We would not have that. If a facility partially closed, fully closed, or just didn't have staffing to meet the needs. And by statute, local public health and human services is part of that process. So we have a go kit with an assessment with all of what we need to walk into that facility and hopefully work with the staff that is there. If that were to happen, we're hoping it does not. We're hoping all of our prevention prevents that from happening, but we also know that the staffing is really a challenge. Home care agencies also continue to struggle with that staffing, so we have waiting lists for homemaking and different services that our clients in public health and across the agency need. So those are some of the things that are still happening, in addition to surveys from the Department of Health asking us what our plans are and different things, but still some fairly short turnaround times. We're also, as we talked about before, working with some of our programs having decreased funding this year and having some vacancies to fill. So we have 2 vacancies right now in public health. One we are not filling, so the funding decreased with some of the programs. As you'll hear in an upcoming report at this meeting, I had another staff member take another position. So right now our SHIP program, as of early March, will not have any staff. We're in the process of rehiring at least one of those FTEs. But of course, their role in the response and with the actual program is big. So there's about 3 or 4 of us picking up pieces, including the community health needs assessment, the MOUs, the mini grants, to cover that while we get up and running. So definitely is presenting a challenge.
I might want to, Mr. Chair, to just comment on like the $60 an hour. You guys can imagine that even though we're trying to think about what lessons we've learned. And one of the ones is we have to, much like the National Guard issue the Commissioner raised, is how do we stand ready and learn from this hardship really on how we prepare for the future. So I thought, well, we can try to get going on contracting with outside entities and bringing in other nurses, but to look at our own staff and then bring in $60 an hour nurses over the top of them is just something that just stopped me cold in my tracks. I'm like, that's not going to work. I just can't do that with how hard our staff have been working, even though we're in an emergency. So we're still looking at the drawing board, trying to figure out how do we set ourselves right for the next round, no matter if it's tuberculosis or pandemic like the ones we've seen. But this workforce efforts that I know the county on a county-wide level we're looking at how do we position ourselves for workforce. But yeah, the concern there, just from my chair and everything and the people we've lost, competitive other jobs out there, especially with things like nursing, but really at every level, we're just not as confident as we used to be that we can just replace people. It can be healthy to have some churn. I think we're down to what Kelly and I talk about a lot is one more position. We just don't know what to do. And so some of this money that's been changed around and fragmented in public health more than any other department, we know like that some of the cuts have kind of equated to one position, trying to rehire the other one. But is it going to continue? Are people going to, the great resignation, is that going to keep happening? So we're concerned about that.
That was a discussion this morning. I mean, they're talking about some of the nurses that, and you can understand why. They can make $60 an hour as opposed to, I'm making numbers up, $30 an hour, and they're still at the same, working in the same place. It's really challenging.
Yep. All right.
So on that happy note, let's see what the future,
Yeah,
let's see what
leave
the
us a
future
roll.
holds, right? But I think we've got a lot of good things going, there's no doubt, but there's some concerns out there as well.
Well, and public health has just done yeoman's work, so thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
For both of you. Yeah.
Good to see you all, take care.
And we'd
Thank
like
you.
to be done, but we're not.
You got more.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
Yep, thank you. Let's see. No, I guess we're at administration.
Well, Mr. Chair, the first item is the county board minutes for February 8th, pardon me.
So moved. It's been moved by
Second.
Kevin, second by Colleen. Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
Move the bills.
Second.
Vance moves the bills, and Kip seconds. Looking over that. Anything else? Then-
I got Mathewitz Construction on 279,382. What road was that, or is that County Road 1? Or?
It could be one of the last ones. I don't remember if that was left.
Yes, it is County Road 1.
All right. Understandable then. Thank you.
All right.
Well, it's all understandable. It's just that I just wanted to.
Okay. Anything else there? All right, well then, hearing none, we got a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 7 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Again, we have removed the action items, so I'll just move into the informational items. We have a promotion of a deputy sheriff to an investigator, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill the deputy position. We also had a promotion of a financial assistance case aide to an eligibility specialist. We have filled a number of correction officer positions, one being a part-time and I guess 2 full-time positions, so making a little progress there, but we continue to see turnover as well, unfortunately. We have then also filled a property and environmental resources specialist position. This is an elections position that was authorized by the county board in 2022. Then we have filled a half-time license center specialist position, and also filled a 911 dispatcher position. As Callie mentioned, we did have a resignation of a public health specialist in our SHIP area, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. And then we've also initiated recruitment to refill a data support specialist from a resignation that occurred and showed up on the last report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has on any of those items.
Any questions?
I don't have any.
No? Okay, we're at the action item anyway, so.
That's all I have for administrative
Yeah.
items, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay. Well, then we have, we didn't vote on that, did we?
No.
We don't
Yeah.
have
No
to.
need to
We don't
vote
have
on
to?
that one, so you
Oh.
can move right
Who
to
took the
the
action?
commissioner
Okay.
reports.
I guess I missed, yeah, I see action. All right, well then, we've completed everything we need, and then we just have our committee reports? Oh, okay, so make sure. I'll start from my right, Kevin.
Well, since our February 8th board meeting, I was involved that day, certainly with the board lunch, board training in the afternoon, and then the event out at the Travel Center. On February 9th, we had landowner meetings on CD 35, JD 36, CD 79. Again, a good example of how important those landowner meetings are. We get a lot of questions answered, and then maybe questions raised before today, and that's always helpful. On the 10th, Commissioner Brunder and I participated in the Soil Water Conservation District meeting, and then had mayors and clerks, had JD 36 this morning, and then spent the time at NACO, very well invested, really appreciated that. My first experience on the National Ag and Rural Policy Committee. Appreciated that opportunity and all the other meetings and interactions we had, as well as with our Minnesota delegation. Calls and conversations primarily have been around CD 35, which we addressed this morning. Still hear a lot of questions on asking for updates on Ditch 56 as to what process we're at, and then some interest we've gotten from other folks around the county on the county shop. And as that's been in the paper, there's more people thinking about it and asking about it than I had been in the process. So that concludes my report.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll go to Colleen.
Okay, on the 10th, Kip and I had intergov. I'll let Kip talk about that. The 11th of the 16th was NACO. Just a couple things in finance and intergovernmental affairs. It was all about the infrastructure bill and ARPA. The CR, they finally passed on the 17th, which was set to expire on the 18th. It's now there till the 11th of March, and sounds like there's some questions there. And so the infrastructure bill is getting that funded, and the money out is contingent on them passing a budget. So it's a challenge. As Kevin said, Smith and Klobuchar meetings. Julie wrote, the IGR director for the Biden administration, talked to the NACO board. We had President Biden speak to us, plus practically every cabinet member was there. So it was, I actually walked in with Mitch Landry, who is energy and a special advisor on the infrastructure bill. So I got to chat with him for a while. I'd met him before, not that he remembered me, but we had a good
You're still a name dropper, though.
I am. Well, it was a great conversation because he's energy and infrastructure, so that was good. Gene Spearling, who's leading ARPA, spoke to us, and his comments were the money should be spent for public health and negative economic impact. Should be responsible and impactful. So keeping that in mind is really important. We also had EPA and a few other places. On the 18th, I had SHAC, and the commissioner has 3 priorities for this year. Number 1 is improve healthcare delivery. Number 2 is prevention, and number 3 is support children and families with home visiting. One of my questions there was, is the home visiting going to have to be face-to-face or virtual? She wasn't sure, so that these are all legislative issues that they're dealing with. Also, the outdated systems that haven't worked for years. This morning I had Airport Commission, and the tower has been submitted, but they're way behind on everything, so they really haven't gotten a response back on that. Put on your calendar, pancake breakfast, August 21st. I'm sure you'll be working at Mark, right?
Not that one.
And we also talked about County Road 12 and some land acquisitions that need to be made from the airport. So it was a good meeting. There were like 5 of us there. Everybody else bailed this morning. And that's all I have, sir.
Thanks, Colleen. We'll go to Vance.
All right. Well, after our last board meeting, we had our collaborative safety training, and we did the truck stop grand opening. On the 9th, I had Blue Earth Nicollet County Safe Roads, which is towards zero death. Everything that's already been talked, February 11th through the 16th. 3 of us were at Washington, D.C. for the NACO Legislative Conference, and I had honored, I'm vice chair of both transportation and the Rural Action Caucus, so I was in those meetings, plus all the other meetings with the staff from with Smith's office, and then Amy Klobuchar actually came right on the Zoom and talked to us for about a half an hour. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Already talked about President Biden speaking with us. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg spoke, and it was right there. And so it was really a good conference. I was impressed. Kevin's getting right in tune, and being his first legislative conference, he's right there. Of course, he just falls in line with the old Farm Bureau stuff. So
He has a history.
yeah. On the 17th, I had a Finance and Budget Committee for TDS, and then a TDS board meeting. And then on the 18th, I had my Zoom meeting with the State Transportation Plans Advisory Committee with the state DOT and other members across the state of Minnesota. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you, Vance. Kip?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After our last board meeting, the training's been mentioned already, but I do just want to mention a couple things. I thought that was worthwhile of our time. I wasn't that excited about spending that much time on it, but I thought it was beneficial. I certainly think we're doing all of that here in Blue Earth County as far as I can feel. You know, as a commissioner, I try to hear both sides of the story and don't jump to conclusion and don't make things all kind of hasty changes. But I thought it was a good training and was worth my time. Travel Center open house was a very nice open house. We actually went out there that night for supper and had a great time. They had really good food, good service. Kevin mentioned the 35 County District 35 landowner meeting. Again, it's a prime example of we try to get all that done before it gets here to the board, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. We've been pretty good lately, but that one there just had, this is a very complicated ditch, so that brings lots of issues. Mark and I were both on a conference call. They're just kind of getting spooled up and getting things ready. Had a lot of talk about going back to an in-person meeting or staying virtual. And I think the discussion basically was around, and I think Felix brought up a good point. He says, you know, we all want to get back together, but it's so easy to do it virtually that you say you're going to show up, but then you're about an hour behind and you say, oh, heck, I'll just hop online. So it's either got and or, the virtual and the in-person hybrid. I don't think there's a lot of support for that. It was either one or the other. So that was actually took the most discussion out of the whole meeting, but everything else was pretty routine. Colleen mentioned InterGov, which we had a great meeting with the city staff. Basically just talked about the redistricting and where they were at. And from my understanding, they should be pretty well done with their stuff by the end of this month. Approve it early next month. The state got their stuff done. We all seen that already. So hopefully we'll get our stuff buttoned up here shortly and we'll all know what we get to do. SWCD, Kevin mentioned, they're doing very well there. They're wrapping up a couple things. Getting spooled up for this summer or this spring and summer. Mayor's meeting, it was nice to see that group get together again. A lot of discussion around how often we should meet, if they should meet at all. And I think they kind of dialed in on to every quarterly. Is that what they kind of dialed down to quarterly, 4 times a year. Yep. So it was good to see. There was some good discussion. Got to meet one of the new mayors from the Amboy area. So it was worth driving over to Mapleton. It's always a nice time over there. And then we had our approval of a tree contract this morning, and then other ditch calls and road issues. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Kip. Well, let's see, I just had on the 9th of February, we just had, there's a RETA meeting, and I don't know, I go to them, sometimes there's the staff, but I always end up going a lot, and it's always informative. Then, of course, as Kip said, we had our MICA meeting, and I was one of those that said that, yeah, let's go back to in-person. You get a lot more. We got a lot more of it. I can't remember who was out of the chute first. But it said the same thing. But yeah, that's who it was. So there's the two of them, and then all of a sudden everybody, because of the, they had to travel and all that. I know it's that river stuff. But yeah, anyway, so apparently I think that's more what it's going to be is. Maybe we can have one.
We're getting the same thing with the TDS board because, of course, that's a 9-county area. And
that's why it's.
And having the Zoom meetings, it really, folks that have to drive an hour and a half to do a half an hour meeting and then drive an hour and a half back, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand.
I come from Duluth.
Yeah, come from Duluth. But we're usually more than an hour, more than a half hour.
Yeah, we got a
couple hours. But anyway, yeah, so. And I did have a Partners for Housing as a fundraising meeting, and then Minnesota Valley Council of Governments, I had that. That was on the 16th too, and that actually concludes it. I did miss going to the Travel Center. I think we'll have to have the board go
grandchildren
for
are
lunch.
So much more important.
Yeah, that was what
we all respect that.
Yeah.
Mark.
That's why we're gonna go have lunch there after a meeting. So
I picked up coffee there this morning on my way to the airport commission.
there you go.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I'm sure they'd love to have us.
Yeah. So thank you. And then I guess that ends.
I move to recess.
The recess.
Second.
It's been moved to second recess. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed carries. All right.
Blue bricks. And you want pictures, Jesse, or?
Yeah.